YouTube vinyl community, Rolling Stones fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and we are here today to talk about the brand new Rolling Stones compilation, On Air, live at the BBC. I have a small version of a record here because I can't afford the big one, so we're doing the CD version this time, which I actually really do enjoy because this is the deluxe bonus edition that has two CDs in it. Not one, not two. Actually, yeah, there is two. So really excited to pick this thing up. I first heard about it, I don't know, a little bit middle of last year at some point. Um, Apparently, this thing dates back to like the mid '90s when the Beatles had put out their live at the BBC tracks. I guess other bands probably wanted to strike while the iron was hot because then we also had like the Who at the BBC, Led Zeppelin at the BBC, the Zombies at the BBC. So it was just a thing to like put out those old tracks, those old radio recordings as a new album because for years you only heard those things if you existed at that time with your radio turned on, and maybe if you had a tape recorder you could tape them off the radio, but if not, that was it. They were gone to the ages. And a lot of that stuff also was gone to the ages as well. Some of those tapes weren't saved, some of them were kept in crappy condition, some of them were preserved the way they should have been preserved. So to get historical documents like this is fun, and of course the recordings vary in degree of quality, but it's meant to exist for historical purposes on its own, just to show that this was a moment in time that happened. Here's what we have left for proof that it did happen. But this thing utilizes the current technology of demixing, which for me is absolutely fascinating, and I love reading and learning more and more about this. Most famously, it was recently used on the Sgt. Pepper reissue in 2017 to great effect. I think it sounds absolutely stunning. This is equally as impressive. There are a handful of tracks on here, alright, maybe more than a handful of tracks on here, that don't benefit from that, but I'm sure they cleaned them up as best as they could. They still sound like they were recorded in the next room over, but some of the tracks on here are absolutely breathtaking in how detailed and clean they sound. Very impressed with the way they were able to get that across, from 50-odd year recordings to make them sound like they were recorded this morning. Excellent work on that. So, let's just jump into this thing. So, this thing was recorded, these tracks on here were recorded basically throughout 1963 to 1965 on different radio shows like Saturday Club, Rhythm and Blues, stuff like that. And so the whole thing opens up with Come On, their first single. And this version of it is such a really spirited version. Like, the band is so young at this point, but they have all that fire in them that they would be known for years later. Mixed vocals aren't as like sharp and biting as they would be within really a few months. But the tenacity is in full force. These guys were hungry. They were determined. They wanted to prove they were a rock and roll band or a blues band that wanted to be known. That's what they wanted to do. Then you get Satisfaction from 1965, which comes almost 2 years later. And the growth there is unbelievable. Obviously, this is their own song, but the confidence being that it's their own song just transcends time. They were excited about this new track. They were so excited, in fact, that Mick only does "hey" once at one point. Instead of doing the "hey, hey, hey," he just does one "hey." Which I think is hilarious. You can always hear him smile as if he's saying "whoops," like when he comes back in. So I like that live feel. Sometimes hearing a mistake here and there in a track gives it a whole new life and you appreciate it more. But Charlie's hammering on this thing and the guitar tone, it's just a powerhouse of a song and there's so much flair to it. These guys were just an unstoppable force back in the day. Track 3, you got Roll Over Beethoven. It's up, it's jumping. Bill's bass has this great walking groove all over the place. Charlie's hi-hat work is extra shuffly to keep that dance vibe going. It's just splashy and exciting. Brian and Keith have a really great guitar interweaving, which is basically one of the things the Stones are known for is their guitar work. But the way they are so fine-tuned and locked by this point, and this was only in 1963. Their chemistry and their guitar playing is unmistakable. And, Mick is really owning the song with his vocal. There's an excellent take of this track. It's outstanding, it's youthful, it's energetic, and it's got lots of bite. We're so used to Chuck Berry's version and the Beatles version. To hear the Stones do it, I think is a lot of fun. The Spider and the Fly, track 4 on this thing, it's got a really rubbery guitar, and that super insanely clean D-mix process really makes this thing sound amazing. It sounds like it was recorded this morning. I don't know how the heck they do that stuff. But the drums are so crisp and bright. The bass is precise and fluid. The vocals are insanely detailed in their delivery. I mean, the whole thing shines. And that really makes for an impressive performance, taking something that's 50-odd years old and making it sound brand new. It's just so cool. Really, really enjoyed that a lot. Cops and Robbers. This one kind of starts abruptly right at the end of Spider and the Fly. There's not a whole lot of space in between the tracks, but excellent harp playing, harmonica playing. It's just as straight up blues as it comes. So, very cool track there. It's All Over Now. For me, it's one of the classic early Stone songs. That infectious chorus, it just feels like the Stones are figuring out how to cover other people's material and make it their own, but also how to weave that into their own songwriting, I think, is hugely seen on a track like this. And the solo on this thing seriously shreds. I absolutely love the solo on this one. Route 66, it sounds so clean. Again, I can't get over the demixing process on this thing. It's just so fun. The detail, the clarity, it sounds like they're in the room. And that's how I would say that for a bunch of these songs. You just can't beat that demixing process. Memphis, Tennessee, this is a really interesting take on this track. It's got a really sweet vocal from Mick. It's a really faithful version. It sounds a lot like the original recording. I think it's great. It's got a nice upbeat feel to it. And musically, they do an excellent job with it. Down the Road a Piece, this is one of my favorite early Stone songs. I've always loved this song. It's just got so much scorching energy, and it just sounds like a band that is so hungry and determined to show off who they are, and they're having a great time doing it. So, easily one of my favorite songs, and this version is just fantastic. Then you get The Last Time, one of their early original songs. Great energy, the bass thumps along on this thing, and that tambourine that pops up throughout some of these early tracks, I think it's just the perfect little cherry on top to some of these songs to really give it more of that extra feel, the extra groove to dance along to. I love Keith singing along on this one a lot. Cry to Me is the next track on here, and this is a song that was really popular to cover back in the day. My favorite version probably is by the Pretty Things. I love their version. But this one is also really, really good. Mixed vocals are sometimes delicate, but then he can totally get them to be rockin' and raw at the same time. It's an absolute standout track for me on this one. I think the bass is fun on this one. I think the drumming is really great. If you hear any songs on this thing, this would be one of them. Really, really enjoyed this was. This was from September '65. The cool thing about the back cover, actually, you don't even have to go to the booklet to see when these things were recorded and what show they were on. So that was on August 30th, 1965. I'm sorry, Saturday Club, September 18th, 65. Mercy Mercy was on the next track here. The layered guitar work, the falsetto background vocals, and again the demix process is an amazing combination. They just sound really confident with their fills and their riffs and their style, and you can tell they can ad-lib some of these things at this point because they can play off each other so well. I'm tripping over my words today, man. I'm so excited to talk about the Stones. And again, awesome vocals on this track. Oh Baby, We Got a Good Thing Going. Really loose, really dancey. I love the cymbal work on this thing. And I love how Mick shouts out the title. The thing is, a lot of these songs, you don't have to go into a lot of crazy detail because a lot of them do sound the same with a bit of differences here and there. But that's not a bad thing. It makes for a great set. Around and Around, another early favorite of mine. I absolutely love their version of this song. That start-stop rhythm, the clean, clever lead guitar, the really loose vibe, the rock and atmosphere. There's such an energy on this track that's inescapable, and you're gonna bob your head, you're gonna sing along, you're gonna dance to it. It's super fun. High Heel Sneakers, the next track on this thing. Again, the demixing process. It plods along a little bit, but in a rocking kind of way. It's got not like a laborious kind of thumping feel to it, but it's got a little bit of a slower groove, which I think at this point on the album is a nice break. Fannie Mae has some excellent harmonica playing. I love the guitar, and I love how they blend so close to each other. They kind of weave into each other pretty well, which is a great trick. The bass walks along really well. You know, Bill does a great job with that. Really short song, but interesting nonetheless. You Better Move On. Charlie and Bill open this one before some guitars jump in. But I love the chords on this one. I love the remixed process. And it's also live, so you get to hear, you know, the kids screaming at the end. And then track 18 on this thing, last song, Mona, has those excellent wavy guitars, that Bo Diddley riff. It's a great closer. It sounds like this. It sounds like the Stones at this time, you know. Just an excellent document of the band during this era. And then CD 2, I'm not going to go into detail about every single song on this thing, but I mean, you get tracks like I Want to Be Your Man, and Carol, I Can't Be Satisfied, I Just Want to Make Love to You. But then you get some stuff like, you know, 2120 South Michigan Avenue, which is slightly longer. It's got more of a guitar break in it, which is so cool. Their cover of I Want to Be Your Man has never been one of my favorite things they've ever done. It's a really short song, too, by the way. Not bad. Some of the tracks on disc 2 have a lot of more poor quality recording-wise. Like Carol isn't the best sounding track recording-wise. I'm sure they tried to spiff it up as best they could, but it's not bad nonetheless. And, you know, some tracks like If You Need Me have really great vocals between Mick and Keith, which is a lot of fun to hear. But overall, I mean, the whole album, you know, disc 1 and disc 2, you can get the standard version, which is just 1 CD, deluxe version like this is, which is 2 CDs, and then there's a record out as well. Overall, yeah, a lot of the songs do sound the same, and it's not a bad thing. That's their sound at the time. This is what they were doing. You know, blues and R&B covers, but they're really good at it. It makes for a really, really fun listen. I love hearing the energy and the youthful spirit throughout this entire thing, and especially hearing the crowds go crazy for this stuff. That's just so much fun to hear that stuff. So let's look at the inside real quick here. So you got some pictures of the guys. There's the back cover. There's the front. And you got the some more pictures of Mick and Keith there, and you got the CDs. But yeah, overall, I've really been enjoying this. I've been playing the heck out of it a lot. I do find it interesting they also chose the same name, calling it On Air, just like the Beatles one. Is that like a BBC thing they're doing now, like a series where they're going to have a band on air? You know, or just call it Live at the BBC, or, you know, Bowie at the Beeb. I mean, you know, not the biggest thing, but I did find that interesting because the Beatles just put one out called On Air, so I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, maybe I'll pick it up on vinyl at some point, but I'm really digging the CD. I'm a sucker for double CD packs like these things. You know, you don't see them too often anymore, but I'd probably give this thing like a 7 out of 10, maybe an 8 out of 10. I would love to hear maybe like maybe I'll make like my own mix, make like one disc out of this with like just the really perfect demixed processed tracks, because it sounds fantastic. That said, I do like the other ones that don't sound as clean as the other ones, but you know, just for fun I might do that. So I don't know, probably 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. I really, really love it. I love hearing the band at this point before they became one of the world's biggest rock bands ever, and kind of changed their sound a little bit over time and became better songwriters and wrote their own stuff. It's just a cool document to hear them at this time. So my name is Giggens. This has been Album Reviews with the Rolling Stones On Air, released in 2017. Rolling Stones records, BBC stuff. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.